You're listening to Artistic Finance, show 165 bonus. On today's show, we chat with audio engineer, DJ, and director of education, Jordan Gilliam. We discuss 529 college savings plans, heeding financial advice from people you trust, saving for retirement early, yes, even at the age of 19, not letting tunnel vision of your ideal career keep you from learning new skills or trying new jobs or experiences, and teaching what you know to those around you because time is always limited. So teach what you can when you can for the greater good. Something I love about the conversation is that we jump around between personal finance and industry finance. So stay on your toes because Jordan doesn't slow down. This is rapid fire, baby. A little background on Jordan. He's been recording and mixing audio for hip hop artists, which has let him share space with artists like Kendrick Lamar, The Chicks, and Paul McCarntney. He was a house audio engineer in Pittsburgh, which led him to join Tech 25, a nonprofit providing workforce development programming, teen camps, and K-8 in-school programming through Pittsburgh Public Schools. Jordan told Ellen and I offline that he is stepping into his purpose with Tech 25, which is creating new pathways for people to enter the industry and doing something super important, which is creating a replicable model for cities across the United States. Links to everything we discuss is in the show notes or at artisticfinance.com/165 bonus. This episode is in partnership with LDI as we lead up to the conference and our live recording there. If you're free and can get to Vegas, it would be super cool to see you there at the recording. It is December 8th at 11 a.m. These pre-LDI episodes are intended to be short and fun. The fun part we succeeded at. The short part I have not. Now that's because I'll return at the end with a bunch of takeaways because Jordan said so much in so little time that I want to debrief about it and also do a mini deep dive about 529 plans. As you're listening, you'll notice there is wind noise on Jordan's audio. If you watched the video on YouTube, you'll see that's because Jordan was on site and outdoors in the wilds of Pittsburgh. He offered to re-record, but when I listened back, it didn't bother me, and I hope you don't mind either. Thank you to Jordan for taking the time, and thank you to Ellen at Live Design, who joins me as co-host for these interviews. Without further ado, let's get to the show.
You are listening to Artistic Finance, where we help creatives learn about the business of show business.
Welcome and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Ethan Steimel, broadcasting from Lake St. Louis, Missouri.
And I'm your co-host, Ellen Lampert-Gréaux, calling in from the tropical island of St. Bart's.
I don't get to beat that at all. This is Jordan Gilliam from Tech 25, a director of education here, coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
How's things in Pittsburgh?
Things are great. The changing of the seasons are always fun. We get to experience all four seasons. So just from like a location standpoint, we really love it here. And then just the general kind of like shift that's happening in how event production is ran in Pittsburgh, how education happens in Pittsburgh is extremely exciting for us. We feel like we're kind of leading the charge in some ways in some really cool, innovative and equitable pathways for people to get involved in our industry.
So what kind of live events do you like to go to?
I was very fortunate I'm 35 now, but I spent over 10 years touring as a DJ for hip hop artists, which also had me recording on the road. I also traveled as a videographer. And so I have experienced every kind of event that the United States of America has to offer. I love festivals. Firefly Festival is one of my favorites in Delaware. I really love that. But I also like some of the grimier stuff. We had a random show in like Kansas where we performed in a literal like bullfighting arena.
Wow.
That's what I love about live events, and that's where having good technology, having good education, having good text is meaningful because nowadays you can throw a show anywhere. You know, we programmed the 4th of July at the Carnegie Science Center here in Pittsburgh, and we had students from all these different areas of Pittsburgh performing on top of a submarine in the Ohio River. So you can really, like in 2024, rethink what events look like. But again, with the technology, whether you're indoor, outdoor, in a cave or in the Grand Canyon, you can shape and you can form the acoustics to fit the space.
That's amazing. So are you good, bad, or neutral with money?
I have had peaks and valleys. I would say neutral, because I entered this industry when I was 19 years old with absolutely no financial literacy at all. And so going to New York City and struggling and trying to figure things out, it was really difficult. That's part of the thing we're trying to change in the industry as well is, my first internship at Chung King Studios, we were working 48 hours a week for free. They would give us $5, but really that was for the subway. But you need to eat, so now you're jumping the turnstile, and spending that $5 on what amounts to almost nothing, right? I've been through really tough times, and I've also, over the course of time, tried my best to educate myself and become better.
So you're really into this like workforce development stuff. Can you talk a little bit about what Tech 25 does there?
Kind of started off with the idea, it was, local event, live event in particular, the staging, the audio, the lighting. We're having a really hard time getting people into those entry-level positions. The universities here in Pittsburgh, which we have plenty of amazing universities, they did over the course of the last 15 years or so start to, add these programs for different production degrees and all of that. But what we found consistently over the years is that these students are not filling the jobs that are available while they're in school. And then when they graduate, they're not necessarily graduating looking to go, be a stagehand. A lot of them have bigger aspirations. A high percentage of them leave the city completely. So we identified that as an organization, and we kind of just hit right to it. So partnering up with production companies initially to be able to rent some gear, to be able to initialize trainings for live sound was where we started. And then, Pittsburgh is a different kind of city. We are a philanthropic city that has a lot of foundations. So foundations, whether private or otherwise, are basically tasked with finding nonprofit organizations that align with their strategic plan and with their outlook on the vision and future of the city, and they invest in them. And so there's a lot of nonprofits in Pittsburgh. There's not a lot of educational nonprofits, even in the United States, that do like our kind of education. So again, kind of starting with the renting of gear, even hodgepodging my gear and Pete, our executive director's gear, together to make this stuff happen. But after we started getting some motion and foundations started to identify us as a thought partner and a leader in this space, they were able to invest in us. So now if you go to our warehouse in Pittsburgh, we have the classroom setting where people come in, same thing that you would see at like the conservatory or like a Full Sail on a smaller scale where, the kids are coming into a classroom, they're getting a lot of like the basics, signal flow, voltage stages. And then, for some of the more advanced programs, they might be in there actually designing different things, whether they're in there messing around in the RDNet for RCF prediction software, or they're building patch lists or whatever it is. They start in the classroom, but then they go up to our warehouse. I mentioned RCF, who's one of our main partners and also a partner for LDI. They're able to go up there and get their hands on real gear, setting up stages, dealing with heavy power, learning safety, learning how to accurately and safely use chain lifts and hoisting up a PA or doing ground stacks, any of the kind of stuff that honestly in this city, the only time you're going to be able to maybe get to do that is it's go time. That's been like the imbalance that happens is even some of these techs they're great guys, great girls that are interested in education and in teaching people around them, but you just don't have the time or the capacity. So that's kind of where Tech 25 steps in.
So
That's
when you
great.
guys do gigs, how do you approach pricing your work or your services?
That's a very good question, especially us being a nonprofit organization that's focused on education. There is a little bit of fear, not from most of them, none of the big production companies, but some of the smaller ones like, oh no, they're going to come in and take the gigs. No, what really needs to happen is we need to have more qualified techs, more high quality gear in the city, and we need to have more events. That is the answer, is more and better. We do function like a production company, and since we have the line arrays, since we have these EV-powered systems or the Bose systems, and we're training DJs and we're training like other types of creatives, we'll do it like a production company. 10% of whatever the retail value of the gear is usually is how we try to bill it into an invoice. Then we bill in the labor, transportation, and a little bit of administrative costs. So from there, that's like kind of standard in how like event production companies will do it, unless it's like high ticket items. Maybe it's less than 10%, maybe it's 5%. But then as a nonprofit, we're able to say, okay, here's what it would be. Here's what it is. Let's work with your budget and make sure that these community events, these stop the violence and anti-violence events that are teen forward facing are happening and are happening on a high level. So we'll go ahead and, again, depending on who the client is, we can be very variable in the amount that we charge for these events.
So what is the biggest financial lesson you've learned so far?
Savings, retirement, trying to think of those things. I think for a lot of people entering our industry in particular, it's so daunting just in general. Trying to think about retirement is like, oh, why would I even do that now? I'm 19 years old, right? And in other industries, that's kind of baked in, right? Some of these corporate jobs, whatever, 401k, you're just kind of like doing these things, or you're around people that are a little bit more financially frugal. What I've found in the industry, especially audio engineering, it's like kind of everybody is all over the place. You don't necessarily, you're not just put in a group of people that have been maybe 10 years tenured or whatever that can kind of help guide you. And so, yeah, I would kind of like advise people to like talk to a financial advisor, like do it, like take a consultation, think about what is the end result of it? What are you doing it for? What do you really want to get out of it? If it really is just the experience and being able to say that you work in the industry, I promise you that's not going to be too difficult. You can weasel your way in there if you really want to. You want to show up every day. You want to learn. You want to ask questions. Oh, you'll get your shot for sure. But what do you want on the other side is a really good question that we should start asking students early and often.
So how did you navigate financial stability during like the pandemic and other slow times?
Slow times, let me answer that one, because that during the pandemic was a little different for me. By diversifying your skill sets. And it's not just about the slow times, it's about cities, it is about the ebbs and flows. Winter, right? For a lot of cities, it's like, oof, in certain parts of our industry, things really slow down. Learn more stuff. Like people, I encounter so many people that lock into this idea of being an LD. I want to be in lighting design. I'm going to be a studio engineer. I want to record music. Or I want to be whatever they want to be, right? And sometimes that creates a tunnel vision that is unnecessary. It's like, look at all these other jobs that are around it. I had fun doing ticket sales and handing out flyers at events because I just love the industry. I like being in and around it. But I know so many other people that are around me that were like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm an engineer, right? So I would encourage people to be willing and like search out the opportunities to learn as much as you can. Guess what happens when you're able to have a good conversation with a lighting designer and you're the audio engineer? What happens when you can communicate properly to an artist and understand how their production, how they're programming stuff in Ableton, and being able to help translate that into a live show, or be able to track multi-track recording? Like, you diversify your skill sets. That's the reason I ended up on tour. I was a cold cook making salads on Spirit Cruises, which is like a 2 to 3 hour harbor cruise out of Chelsea Piers in New York. I'm also working at Quad Studios. So, on Facebook, everybody's like, whoa, yeah. I'm also in the galley, and I'm also on a buffet line serving people food. But I saw the DJs, man, and they were doing virtual DJ. They were more MCs, right? It's like New York. So the daytime evening cruise is like, this is the Hudson River that went from the Adirondack Mountains down to the, and I knew I could do that. But then I also, like, the late night and the student cruises turned more into like actually DJing. So I learned that. And when it was Donis, who was signed to Atlantic Records, I was working in Jim Jones' studio on 28th and Broadway, and we're just talking. And he's found out I DJ'd, and 2 weeks later I was on tour because he needed an audio engineer and he needed a DJ. I was both things. I was on tour with the Dixie Chicks because I started coming back to Pittsburgh. I met Emmai Alaquiva, who is now, he had already won Emmys. He's won many more since. I wanted to work at his studio as an audio engineer. I'm coming from New York. I'm an audio engineer. I'm also on tour. I'm killing it. He needed somebody to run and gun with him videography. So I did it, and then one of my buddies, Dan Landoni, was going with Josh Herbert. Shout out to Josh and Abby Herbert. He knew I had the skill set of touring and I would be a good person to bring along. So next thing you know, I'm on tour with the Chicks. You know what I mean? So diversifying, always networking can be a really, really good answer to the slow times. And the networking piece, like showing up for other people, not just your gigs. Like, show up for your peers' gigs. Go check it out. Go see how they're mixing. Go see how their light show looks. Go tap in, because those are going to be the people as they continue to learn and grow that can also provide you with additional opportunities.
So are there specific tools or resources that you use now to help manage your finances?
No, I'm taking baby steps. Some of the advice that I give students is advice that I haven't taken myself. For me, it's the secured credit card route. It's keeping, something that is secure, something that if hard times fall, I can't just pull it out and start swiping it. I know for me personally, that's not a power that I need to yield. So secured credit card, being able to have something that I'm month over month loading, I'm using it for basic essentials. I have a daughter. My daughter, Mina, is 6. And a 529 savings plan. I would encourage everybody to look into a 529 savings plan for their kids, because if you're a parent and if you are lucky enough to have a good connection with your kid by the time they graduate, like, it's not over. There's a financial responsibility and a burden that you will help to carry through their preteen, through their teenage days, and into adulthood. And so if I can create a situation where Mina has a non-taxed, not counted as an asset pocket of money that will not be counted as she applies for loans and can be used for other types of trainings and not just universities, I think that is setting me up for a future of financial stability, because I will have to worry less about making sure she's okay.
Yeah, and the fact that she can go to school and not have a lot of student debt would be great.
Yeah, I know some people that are more affluent, they go that route. That this is all stuff, some of this financial literacy stuff, it's like accessible if you know about it, but nobody tells anybody about it. It's like this other thing that goes on. There's ways for you, if you have a trusted person, you can put the 529 savings plan under another person's name. As long as it's not the parents or the grandparents, it won't be counted as an asset for her, which is crazy, because now she can go and apply for financial aid. And so they're like, families that are more affluent do that. So now they have this nest egg, and those are the kids that go they world travel. They go take the whatever year off. They go do these things because they're still approved for the loans that they need to, the forgivable stuff or whatever. So yeah, not financial advice, but check it out.
Wait, but I actually have a question about that, which is the 529 for your daughter. We don't have to discuss personal details, but is that in somebody else's name or is it in her name?
It's in my brother's name.
Brilliant. Oh my gosh.
Yep. He's around super smart people, you know what I mean? And people that are more affluent. And when he learned about it, he told me, he was like, would you be interested in doing it? And I trust him, Now, of course, you got to trust somebody to do something like that. It's like him and her that are going to be on this, right? But again, if it's not a father or a mother or a grandparent, it's not counted as an asset.
This is amazing. Okay, because I have a 18-month-old and we have a 529 plan, but it's in my name or his name.
That's still wonderful, and people can contribute to that. So, if you're good enough to be able to, if your kid doesn't really need toys, or no, tell your family, yo, invest in the 529 savings plan, a little monthly, whatever, over the course of time. And guess what it is? It's a tax write-off. It's a tax write-off for everybody, and it's it's like one that it doesn't matter what TurboTax or whatever. They're like, do you invest in 529? Like every year you see it, people just don't necessarily know what it is.
Yeah. And so it's a tax write-off for everybody. And then this year they made the rule that if for some reason you don't use it in education, you can turn it into an IRA for them when they're 18 or something. So it's like, now it's even better.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you were talking about education and all that and how important it is. And I will say yes to everything you're saying, because also 3/4 of the words that you said, I had no idea what they meant. Like I had some idea about clips and stacks and speakers, but there was a lot of jargon in there that I'm like, holy cow, there's so much to audio I didn't even realize.
We're going to be doing at LDI some audio trainings. It's going to be on the showroom floor. If you guys go over and check it out, it is available. I have Carolyn Slothour, who just finished her last show with Matchbox 20 yesterday or the day before, who's going to be flying in. Ben Peters, who's on our staff, who's a bit of a wizard himself. And so it's a great opportunity to come low-hanging fruit, come learn. Learn some of the terminology, ask some questions. We're getting into such a cool zone now with how everything is connected, whether it's Dante or other systems. We're pretty much full Dante. It's just all of these worlds are starting to really blend together. The future of success is really being able to understand as many of these different communication protocols as possible. And then it's up to us, the creatives, that's where the fun comes in engineering, is learning enough about how these systems work so we can break them and have a new creative breakthrough on how things get done.
Amazing. So who do you want coming and what do you want them leaving with?
It's open for anybody, beginner or otherwise. The staff there can answer anything from advanced to basic questions. And it really could be for anybody, honestly, but especially for people that might work in an environment where those type of collaborations happen more effectively. Like they actually that's like a thing, whether it's the theater world or otherwise. Broadcast that are into broadcast system, that's a really big one. To be able to learn, oh man, NEP, to be able to get into that door and work on broadcast trucks or work within the stadiums. That's how you get it done. Utility.
Awesome.
You get in the door with utility. You need to know it all.
All right, so you're going to be busy at LDI, but just on a personal level, what are you looking forward to doing there?
Oh, everything. LDI is such a wonderful conference. Shout out to Miss Ellen. Shout out to Jesse, the whole team. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I don't know is about to happen. I think there was some showcases last year that really blew me away that I didn't expect. I look forward to us being on the showroom floor and having some space and representing audio. And I look forward to talking to some of the scholarship recipients. LDI opens up these amazing opportunities for people to come in and get their travel compensated and in the whole 9 yards. It's an amazing scholarship. Last year, I had the opportunity to like spend personal time with those students. So for me personally, I want to spend some time with them, figure out what their goals are, see what kind of connections we can make. Because it's really just about networking, opening up doors for people and connecting the dots.
Man, this was awesome. Well, Jordan, it was great meeting you and hearing all about this. I'm inspired by everything you're doing, and your energy and relaxed attitude is like incredible.
Well, thank you. You're going to be there, right, Ethan?
I'll be there. I'll see you.
Okay, good. Well, let's, whether it's there, or we jump off and grab a bite or some coffee. Let's definitely do something.
Yeah. Well, if you're at your session and you hear somebody ask something like, what is that speaker? Or like some really basic question, you're like, I bet that's Ethan over there. Ellen, we're done, right? We're all good?
Yeah, I was going to maybe ask one last question, which is like, what financial advice would you give your 19-year-old self now?
You're not going to be a millionaire in 3 years.
Right.
I really thought it was going to that quick. Less about me personally. Don't wait. Tech 25 is a antithesis of a lot of like the passions and like, as my family was raised to like have an impact on this world. And in my mind, I needed to accrue millions of dollars to be able to be financially stable enough to be able to do these type of things. Of course, I knew nothing about the nonprofit space or anything like that. So it's not like, you know what I mean? I could have done anything different, but seriously, it's like, each one teach one. As you accumulate these skills, as you're learning and growing, and not just about seriously, like whatever skill sets, like teaching as many people as you can, opening up those doors, having the conversations is the most important thing. And so just like, don't wait.
I love that advice. And I just have to echo it because I found that I've started doing that in my life where it's like somebody asks me a question and I just start teaching them what I know. Like, I don't know if it's right or it's wrong. I just know that I have this knowledge and I start sharing it with them until they tell me like, stop, I get it. That's not what I was asking.
Right. Right.
I think it's so good. It's just like, talk about it so that way people can hear it.
Yeah. And this is the word, like, it's so okay not to have the answer. Like, that's the change in some of the core standards of teaching that's at least happening in the state of PA. We're raised in education to kind of think of it in a way where you're going to have a teacher or a professor with this ultimate knowledge, and they're going to impart it upon you, and like the tests are built to like recite it back. Tell me what I told you. Tell me what I told you. When you get into a space where you're learning with the people that you're teaching, that's what Tech 25 is. Like that it happens all the time, all the time. Where all of a sudden you're like, you know what? Yeah, I need to look it up. And when people see you doing that as an educator or as a leader or as somebody who's like been in the game for a long time, it's like calming. It's like one of the most healthy things you can do, like from a mental health standpoint, is like letting people know that it's okay not to know, and here's the path to figuring out the answer.
I love it. I love
do
it
too. I agree with Ethan. I think your energy is infectious, and you must be a great teacher.
Oh yeah, we have fun. I'm stepping into my purpose, Miss Ellen.
Great. All right.
That's it for this episode. My takeaways are, well, let's start with 529 plans for youngsters. Not only is it saving for their future, it's doing it in a tax sheltered way. And the idea to put it in somebody else's name never occurred to me. Well, it occurred to me, but it takes a little bit of planning, and you have to have somebody you trust agree to put it in their name, which means they have to keep track of it on taxes, etc. But as Jordan says, it's super easy. but you still have to take the time and forethought to set it up that way. And the taxes for someone else is fine. It doesn't count against their taxes because it's a tax sheltered account. And if anything, they'll get a write-off if they contribute to the plan. And to clarify, anybody can contribute to the plan, a 529 plan, even if they don't own the account. So they can still take the tax write-off, even if they're putting it into an account with someone else's name. So a parent could contribute and write it off on their taxes, even if they're putting it into an account that somebody else owns. Now, a reason this is important is, as Jordan said, it doesn't count as an asset against the kid as their parent applies for financial student aid. Now, this sounds like a scheme, but it isn't. It's just how the rules are structured because 529 plans are designed to be helpful. And if anything, going through these hoops are more beneficial to lower income people because affluent people's student aid won't be overly impacted based on a 529 plan. Their other accounts and assets are going to be the issues. Now, remember, I piped in and said that with the latest overhaul of the 529 plan, you can now roll over unused 529 savings into a Roth IRA. I looked up the rules on that and I wanted to pass them along to you. So you're limited to $35,000. So if this is your backup plan with a 529 plan, don't go crazy. Maybe if you think your student is going to spend if you think your kid is going to spend $100,000 on their education, maybe save $135,000. So that way there's $35,000 left over. Or if you think they're going to get scholarships or something, maybe only put in $35,000, knowing that it'll be a backup plan. Like that part can be rolled over. Or let's say put in $20,000 and hope that it grows to $35,000. Anyway, along with that $35,000 limit, you are also limited to the annual contribution limits of a Roth IRA. So currently that's $7,000. So if you were fortunate enough to have saved up $35,000 in the account and didn't need it, and you wanted to roll it over, you would have to do that $7,000 at a time per year. So it would take you 5 years of putting $7,000 rolling into a Roth IRA to deplete the 529 plan. Another thing is that the account must be open for 15 years in order to be eligible for that rollover. That's important because it's motivation right now, today, to open an account. Even if you don't plan to use it, maybe just open up one with like $100 in it, just on the off chance that in 10 years you want to utilize this option. Another stipulation is that the rollover funds can only happen if the funds have been in the account for 5 years. Now, that's not unreasonable or untenable, but it's something to be aware of. You can't just dump $35,000 into an account that's been dormant for 15 years. You have to let the funds stay in there for 5 years. All right. Another rule change that I learned by looking this all up, and I need to tell Jordan this, not that it matters anymore, but a grandparent owning the account now in 2024 and moving forward does not count as an asset for the child's financial aid. So Jordan has the account owned by his brother, and that is perfect. But if you're going to open up an account from now or into the future, you can be the grandparent and own it, and it's not going to count as an asset when they apply for student aid. And let's say you're like me and you didn't think about all this and you just opened up an account in your name and you're the parent. That's okay because only 6% of it will be counted against financial aid. So if we have $10,000 in an account for Theo when he applies for college financial aid, $600 will be reduced from his package. Now, hopefully, since I've opened up the account, it will grow much more than $600 in the next 15 years. So it's clearly beneficial to open the account, whether or not I did it in the most efficient way possible. On that same vein, brokerage accounts for minors have a reduction on financial aid, except that they reduce by 20% of the assets. So if we had a minor brokerage account for Theo, which we do from our time in Arizona, if we have $10,000 in it when he applies for student financial aid, 20% of that will count against him. So $2,000. Mentioning this because the 529 plan is definitely better when it comes to college savings benefits and tax benefits. But I do want to point out that the brokerage minor account does not count as an asset for the child if owned by a grandparent or non-parent. So if you're not the parent, you have a lot of options to help out without impacting the student aid. And now that's by a 529 plan or by a regular brokerage account. Part of the reason I'm doing this deep dive is that back on our episode with Carolyn Wong, she talked about doing something for a niece. And Carolyn, if you're listening, I'd say definitely go ahead and do it. Because whether it's a 529 plan, which would give you a tax break, or if it's a brokerage for a minor account, which gives them more flexibility of the funds apart from just education or an IRA, but it doesn't give you a tax break, but it's still great and it doesn't impact their financial aid. Now, that being said, please remember to not take anything on this podcast as true. I'm just reading through things from the IRS website and from savingforcollege.com. I will put the links to what I'm reading in the show notes. And fun fact, the IRS calls 529 plans QTPs, qualified tuition programs. Who knew? Anyway, consult a financial professional before making decisions for you and your people. Now, my other takeaways, and there's a lot of them. The spirit of working in the industry and loving being a part of things makes Jordan so great to be around. I can't wait to see him at LDI, but that energy made him be a line cook to afford interning at a studio. And that's the hustle that's required for the live events industry. Hearing this is a reminder that you can now look to those in the industry that relate to you. And now more than ever, there's someone of every shape, size, gender, race, location, spirituality, mental stability, financial status, hobby enthusiast. There's someone of every type that's working now, and you can seek them out and emulate them or ask questions of them. In theater specifically, it's historically a profession where those with privilege would make it a career and others couldn't. Now there are people like Jordan or Asia Jackson, who's going to be on next week's show, that are working to open access to those that historically haven't had it. And that's what's great about Tech 25 is that on their website, they bluntly state that there are good paying jobs that they want to train people for so that people can enter into the industry with skills that can earn them money from day one. Jordan took his path of the internship, et cetera, but he's hoping others aren't going to have to take that $5 a day internship in an expensive metropolis and work hodgepodge, non-live event jobs until they can get a chance to break into the industry. Now, yes, the getting started hustle is always going to be around and it's dependent on what you want for your career, but there are trainable skills that can be taught to help pretty much anyone earn a living. And Jordan has such a positive outlook on it and is doing the work. His love of festivals as an audience member, and more than an audience member, but as a participant of the experience, I just love seeing somebody so ingrained in the environment. It reminds me of Richard Winkler, who was on our last episode talking about loving good theater. He just wants to be involved, whether it's the lighting department or the producing department, or just going to see or support a show. Pretension. Let's talk about that. Jordan doesn't have it. And oh, what a relief it is. There's no pretension. It's just honest people loving the work, wanting to educate others about the work. And what those people that get trained do with the skills that they learn is totally okay. If they're achieving their goals and Jordan can help that happen, that's what he cares about. He's gatekeeping in a backwards way in that he's shepherding through the gate anybody who's willing and able. Now, side note here, if you have a chance and you're near Pittsburgh and you want to support their mission, throw some money toward Tech 25. It's a great organization similar to Asia Jackson's nonprofit in Boston, which we'll hear about next episode. On a personal note, I'm honored that I get to chat with these people who are out there doing this work. Jordan mentions that Pittsburgh has a lot of foundations that are tasked with finding nonprofits that they can invest in to expand their mission. It reminded me of the book Decolonizing Wealth, written by somebody in a leadership position at a foundation that documents the often frustrating process for getting foundation money where it truly needs to go. Now, having learned about that, the fact that Tech 25 is able to partner with foundations means a lot of people are working together to make that happen. So congratulations to Jordan and everyone. If you're interested in Decolonizing Wealth, the book, we did a review episode about that. It's episode 125. You can find that at artisticfinance.com/151. I'll have a link to that and the book in the show notes. And a note that the link to the book is an affiliate link, which we've actually had one person purchase a book through our affiliate link, and we got $4. That was Natalie Robin and Breeding Clement Cotton's book, Theater Work. And I'm mentioning it just because if you do want to purchase that book or another book we've discussed on the show, please seek out our link for it because bookshop.org is very good about giving us 10% of the sale. All right, that was a digression, but Jordan mentions that Tech 25 has a warehouse with a classroom like a smaller version of Full Sail. Full Sail University is a school in Florida that teaches live event production. Back on episode 35, we talked with Brandon Blackwell, who attended there before starting his career as an audio engineer. Talking about event production and billing, Jordan mentioned for gear that Tech 25 charges 10%. Now that means if they rent out a microphone that costs $1,000 to purchase, they bill $100 for it. That's a standard production process for rental houses, regardless of which one you're going to use. Now, Tech 25 on top of that will add labor and trucking, et cetera. And Jordan mentions that because there are a lot of numbers that can be manipulated so that being a nonprofit, they can connect their mission to a project and find ways to get their techs out on job sites. The point about 401ks and retirement being baked into other jobs, but not in the freelance industry. So savings and retirements are things that we, the individuals, have to make sure we're doing for ourselves. Jordan makes the point that you aren't really working with a group of young people who then progress through the industry into old age and retirement. But at any given time, you're working with young people, old people, a hodgepodge of ages and experiences. So to get the financial advice you need, you have to seek it out from those that know what they're doing. And whether that's a financial advisor one-off meeting or a trusted family member or colleague, you aren't going to get the savings and retirement plan handed to you. So you, if you're a freelancer, you have to spend some time and work on it. Connected to that, what do you want out of the industry? Do you want to work live events forever? Do you have goals? What do you expect to do at the end of your career? Those are questions that you have to force yourself to answer, because once you do, you can get an idea of what you're going to need to do now and along the way to be able to get there. Tunnel vision in a career, it creates an unnecessary barrier to other jobs or career paths. So whatever you want to be, make sure you learn as much as possible, even if it isn't completely connected to your goal. Diversifying skills is only ever a benefit, and it gives you confidence in areas that otherwise you might be wary of. So I'm thinking of myself. I've never learned about projection. A lot of lighting designers end up becoming projection designers, yet I've never taken a class or even watched a video on how projections work. So I'm intimidated by them merely because I don't know how it works. Now, if I were to go learn to create a basic projection cue, maybe a cue list, I guarantee it would help me be more comfortable with the idea, the technology, but also be able to talk projections with other collaborators. For example, Jordan mentioned Ableton. I have no idea what that is, though I do have a link to it in the show notes in case you're curious. But if I learned about it, I'm sure that I would improve my communication with other people. All right, networking, always a favorite topic of mine because I'm not an outgoing person. So I spent the first part of my career avoiding networking. But what is Jordan's version of networking? Showing up. And I'm not just talking about showing up for work, but showing up for other people's things. So I personally have found excuses always, or I blame being introverted as a reason not to go out and network, but making it a priority to show up for other people and ask questions or show interest, that's the way to do it. You'll enjoy it. And I guarantee there's nothing people like better than being supported. It's a dog eat dog industry, and being a genuinely kind person and showing up to be supportive, friendly, or generous of spirit in any way is going to be well received, even if it's not overtly appreciated. Not to talk about this podcast because it's a little bit different, but anytime I've seen someone sign up as a patron, even if it's a free patron, that signals to me that they're being supportive, which emotionally helps me continue with this work. I happen to know all my patrons' names because there's only 30, so it isn't that crazy. But it's a simple thing on their part, perhaps, just like going to someone's show or sharing someone's work. But it has a big impact on me. And of course, I'll do what I can for patrons if ever the time comes where I can offer an introduction or something like that. Not that it has anything to do with art or finance, but it is being engaged and a member of the live events industry. So network, but do it by just showing up in whatever way it is, but show up. And we can connect this back to last episode with Richard Winkler, who said, I show up. And it's a really good point. I show up. You show up. Anyway, all right. Secured credit cards. So a secured credit card is a card that you put down a security deposit on. So say you put down $1,000 to get the card. You then have a credit limit of $1,000. Now, as you use the card, you pay it off every month. And if for some reason you don't, then the bank takes what you owe out of the $1,000. So your limit gets diminished, but you still have the card and you can build it up again. What's great about these cards is that you can't overspend them. You don't have the option to. So you can't ruin your credit. They're also available to people who don't have a credit history. So if you've never had a card or a bank won't give you a standard card, you can get a secured card and build a credit history. And now when I looked this up online, the advice was that if you want to build credit history, just make sure the card is with an institution that reports that credit to the credit bureaus. Now, Jordan was mentioning using a secured card, not for building credit, but in order to not overspend. And by overspend, we mean rack up debt that you can't pay off each month, which means it's going to start accruing interest and that debt grows, which is a vicious cycle. So if that's a worry for you, certainly consider a secured card. Don't wait. Let me just echo that point. Do not wait. For one, compound interest, which we've covered in past episodes, and we're going to cover again on an upcoming episode with lighting designer Travis McHale. It's important for compound interest, but not just with finances, with anything. And I'm going to link in the show notes a podcast episode of Why I'll Never Make It. Now, I know everyone only has so much time to listen to podcasts, but if you have an hour, take a listen to the episode. It's with Dominic Thrasher, who is a performer. Now, he's in his early 40s and last year was diagnosed with ALS, which means he has 5 years max to live. And not only is he limited to 5 years, but his body is becoming less mobile every single day. So to be a performer and your purpose is to be on this planet to go out and perform, but slowly lose your body functions. So you're no longer able to dance, and then you're not able to sing, and then you're not able to walk. It's a crazy experience that I wish on no one, but it's happening to Dominic. And it's a reminder to us all that what our purpose is and what are our goals, go figure it out. If you do go listen to that episode, just know that I cried during it. It's so relatable to so many of the jobs that we do in the design and production areas of live entertainment. So be prepared emotionally. Patrick, who hosts that show, doesn't know I'm recommending it. I just listened to the show and I found that episode to be very, very moving because Dominic, just like Jordan, has zero pretension in his body, like zero. Moving on from that, each one teach one, as Jordan says. That's a saying originating from slavery times when each enslaved person learned to read. It was their duty to teach another person for the benefit of the community. With Tech 25 and in today's world, skills are ever evolving. So pass along the knowledge you have as much as possible for many reasons, but one being it's a responsibility to the entertainment community. The skills we have are very specific, and the more people who can learn them, the better it is for everybody. Not to mention, it strengthens your bond with your colleagues. And connected to that, it's okay not to have the answer. I wanted to add this during the interview, but we didn't have time. And that is something I do with students and assistants who work with me. I call the ETC helpline on speakerphone, or I call customer service on a product to troubleshoot. It's so easy to try and scour the internet for forums to help, but there are people who exist in our industry that know the products inside and out, and you can get a hold of them. So knowing that is powerful. And so if you're listening and you run into a problem, I would encourage you to take the 5 minutes to locate the manufacturer phone number and call them. And sometimes the answer is box it up and send it off, or, there's nothing we can do. But sometimes it is try this or try this or try this. Even if it doesn't work, you at least know that you got the info from the experts. Anyway, that's a skill that people don't take the time because it takes time to do that. But it's important to know. All right. Thank you to Ellen for co-hosting this episode. We have a real journalist on our hands, and I'm sure the interview felt more official. For LDI details, visit ldishow.com. If you want to help Artistic Finance cover costs to get to LDI, feel free to visit our Patreon and purchase a worksheet or subscribe as a patron. My pitch for patrons is that you get early access of episodes. You get ad-free episodes and extended full interviews. So to sign up, go to patreon.com/artisticfinance. The dad joke to end the episode: why did Jordan bring one of Tech 25's microphones, speakers, and complete audio packages with him when he opened his daughter's 529 college savings plan? Because he wanted to make sure the investment amplified her future. That's it for today. Until next time, break a leg.
Thank you for listening to Artistic Finance, where we interview successful artists, leaders, and investors to help educate and inspire the creative community. To access our show notes and resources, go to artisticfinance.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any decision, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Artistic Finance. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.